It's Sunday, the 16th of May, 2021. In today's playoff special preview show, we are joined by not one, but two Oxford United fans to help us warm up. It's the first of the two-legged Wembley showdown between Poole and the Yellows, which takes place this coming Tuesday at the Kassam Stadium. I'm John Aspinall, this is the Seasiders podcast. Sunday night preview show, Oxford United versus Blackpool, round one.
It's already changed the world. A small town from the north of England with a great tradition.
Welcome everybody to the Seasiders podcast. We used to saying Friday night preview show, Tom. Just unmute, boys, just before we get going. It's like a teamwork call, this. You're on mute. There we go. So, Tom, a bit weird saying Sunday night preview show, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely a weird one, but it's a big game, so we've reserved a lazy day for it, and hopefully we can provide some good viewing.
And speaking of weird ones, join us also on the pod is Sean McGinley. I'm joking, Sean.
You missed that accredited there, John, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah. Credited sports journalist Sean McGinley is in
that's more like
midst.
it. In your presence. Grace you with my presence. Yeah.
For you Oxford boys, we've got a professional sports journalist with us.
Oh, great.
There's us people from Blackpool, we're all professionals.
Definitely.
I've been there, mate.
Join us repping the U's or the Yellows, whatever you want to call yourselves this evening, is Steve Day. Steve, you've been on before. I'm a colleague of mine, so welcome back. Good to have you back.
Cheers, man.
You'll be pleased to hear, Steve, that we've got some XG chats from the journalist over there.
Oh, they're probably favourable stats.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have said anything if it wasn't.
Exactly. Great.
Steve, you introduced us to XG, didn't you? Or was it Andy at work?
He's one of us, yeah, definitely. It was more favourable in our favour back then, so I don't want to talk about it this season.
I still don't get it anyway, so I'm sure Sean will explain. I got branded a bit of a thicko for not understanding it, but let's move on. Adam Strang, welcome, Adam. Also, I think you've had one appearance on the podcast in the past, so welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Hi all.
It's great to have you back. I've noticed your name's Strang. Did you ever used to watch what's it called? The one with man behaving badly. He was called Gary Strang.
It's Strand, not Strang.
Oh, is it?
Damn it. Close though. Close.
Oh well, never mind. Never mind. Right, on with the show then. Gents, just before we get going anyway, just we want to just say a few words about the terrible incident that happened in Blackpool regarding the young lad who got unfortunately struck by lightning and killed. So it was a terrible, terrible thing that happened, and we just want to just take a few minutes of silence just to pay tribute to him, the young lad, Jordan Banks, who sadly lost his life on Common Edge, where we've all played. I mean, I bet Sean has, maybe not Tom, because you've lived away from the podcast well, but we've all lived there, played there in the past. So if any of Jordan's families listening, so a heartfelt condolences all from on the Seasiders podcast. And yeah, we'll just take a few minutes and then we'll get on with it. So this is in our respects to Jordan. Okay, let's get on with the show. So, opening talking points. Steve, just going to come to you first. Does last year's disappointment give Oxford an advantage?
That's a good question.
The fact that you've been there,
it feels so different, though, mate. It feels so different. Like last year, like we would fly. We would have gone on order as if it had finished the season, I think. And this time around, it feels like we've kind of crept in the back door. I mean, admittedly, our form's been good, but like, it feels like we're lucky to be here, so anything else is a bonus in a way.
Can that work in your favour though this time? Because you were kind of a bit gutted, weren't you?
Yeah,
dropping into the playoffs last year, and that can have a negative effect.
Yeah, I mean the PPG thing that knocked us down below Wickham in the first place was pretty sour for us. Obviously, given that the games don't play out the way you expect them to at the end of the season anyway, we all know that. And then to then fall in the playoffs and then play Wickham in the final as well, and then be the favourite, dominate the game, and then lose. Like super bitter about that, and personally quite happy that Wycombe got relegated from the Championship this season, just to get some retribution for that. But nonetheless, like this season, I don't know, man. Just happy to compete and see where we go this season, and you know, hopefully carry on the momentum we've already got. But you never know. We'll see. They
shithoused the way to the victory in that final, didn't they?
Exactly. Yeah, it was an awful. Did you guys watch it? I mean, come on.
I watched it. Yeah.
Oh. The difficult thing for last year's final is the break they had in between, wasn't it? So
yeah,
it must have been really weird to go back after 3 months was it, and then obviously have to go through the heartache of the playoffs as well. So it's a bit of a weird season, wasn't it? And you didn't have that sort of run into the playoffs and then play in the final. It was that weird break we all had. So still played really well considering the break you had, but just wasn't meant to be.
True. Although the Portsmouth games we played were so dour. I don't know if you guys saw those. They weren't great at all. But then saying that, I mean, this season we've had 10 games? Is it 10 days or so between the end of the season and Tuesday? Again, given the velocity of games we've had this season, I'd rather be smashing it straight away rather than this 10-day grace that we've now got. Kind of what can happen in 10 days, you know? It's kind of feels weird.
Adam, do you feel that's going to help or hinder Oxford in this year's playoff adventure?
I certainly don't think it can. You know, it does help in a way because we had the disappointment last year, and obviously we kept the core of our team, so they're not going to want that disappointment again. So yeah, it certainly can't hurt us. But then Steve saying about it being a dour, you know, the semi-finals against Portsmouth being dour last season. I think the reason that those games were kind of a little bit dour, obviously that the break contributed to that, but I think it was both teams stifled each other out. They did a research on each other, and you know the tactics that both teams played. So it made it a bit of a stalemate situation. And I actually think that there's a risk of that happening again across these two matches. In the fact that, I mean, my biggest concern is when you last played us and beat us 2-0, you did your homework on us and you know played your strengths and completely stifled us. And if both teams do their homework and get the tactics right on the day, it does risk maybe it being a bit of a sort of a mute affair. Plus the break, as Steve mentioned. So, I mean, overall, I think, yeah. As Steve said, we're happy just to be there. We never saw this. We never saw it coming. I mean, when we lost those 2 games over Easter and just before Easter losing to Northampton, with 7 games to go, if you'd said to us, we're going to win 6 of them and get into the playoffs, we wouldn't have believed you. So,
Steve, just coming to you then. On the 7th of December, you're in the bottom 4. And obviously, you and I were chatting about our respective terrible starts, me kind of laughing at that stage because we turned a corner. So looking at the table then and now, it's quite staggering really that you've made the playoff. So you must be over the moon.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, yeah, I mean, even 10 games ago, or I mean, I guess 7 games ago, when we'd basically written our season off after losing to Accrington at home. And I remember Carl Robinson saying every game's a final from there on in out, and we had 7 games to go, and we won 6 of them, you know. So without that smashing form at the end, there was never a hope in hell. And I think most of the fans in the Oxford camp were like, well, the season's done with 7 games to go, to be fair, to get those victories, and also for obviously Accrington on the final day to beat Pompey away. Like it all kind of just came and fell in the right place. Which, you know, you hope is a bit of an omen for what we might play out in the next 3 games, hopefully. But so far, it's kind of just feels surreal, I guess, to be here, given all of that. You know, it's just been a really, really weird season for everyone.
Well, yeah, I mean, for both of us as well, you know. Yeah. We were, what was it, 1 win in 10, something ridiculous, and there was people calling for the manager's head, and, you know, we've completely turned it around. So from that period, you've taken 59 points over 31 games, and that's 1 more point than Blackpool. So as Adam said, it's so finely poised. We're both in great form, and Sean, it's going to be very difficult to pick a winner from these 2. I wouldn't like to predict it if I was a betting man.
Yeah, I think these are the best 2 teams in the playoff for me. I think that Lincoln have had a bit of a blip recently, although obviously they've got the strongest players back, which is really important. Sunderland, again, they have the individuals on the day, but have they really put it together consistently recently? I wouldn't say so, and I think a lot of their fans aren't very optimistic. And you just have to look at Oxford are scoring goals for fun at the moment. I mean, the amount of chances that they're creating, the amount of attacking players in their lineup as well. They've kind of just gone gung-ho and just said, if you're an attacker, like we'll throw you at right. Like Anthony Ford's played right back at some points of the season. It's like just throwing anyone in there with an ounce of creativity. And I guess it works. And even the centre halves are goal threats. I mean, Rob Atkinson scored a few goals this season. And that's what made that game away from home when we played them initially quite strange in a way, that we won off 2 set-piece goals and we stifled them in that front. And as Adam was rightly saying before, we are the perfect defensive team and Oxford are the perfect team in terms of chance creation. So it can very easily sort of clash and become that sort of middle ground. So yeah, it's really cool to tie. It's really tight to goal even.
Got a comment in here from David Jackson. Good evening all. Question to the Oxford duo. How much atmosphere and noise will the Oxford fans make on Tuesday?
Do you want to take that, mate?
They'll be loud, although a lot of that noise will probably escape out the empty fence end. But yeah, they'll be loud. I mean, I think it's about saying across the country, everybody's dying to get back to it, aren't they? I mean, it was so nice seeing the FA Cup final yesterday with fans in, and
it was, yeah.
It's amazing, and a few thousand supporters will be able to make a lot of noise. So yeah, it'll be noisy in there.
Have you got a ticket, Adam, at all?
No, I only went to our season ticket holders. So all the people I know that are season ticket holders, my dad included in that, they're all going. But being based in Manchester, it's a bit of a trek. You
can go and stand on that exposed corner where there's a grass bank and watch it. Get yourself a pair of binoculars.
Do what some fans do and hire a van and just park it up against the fence and stand on the roof.
Hire a cherry picker. Go behind the goal.
Exactly.
Want to go on to talk about Steve's favourite subject, which is the record against the top 8.
Looking forward to this, Tom. I'm looking forward to this.
So the overall record against the top 8 isn't great. Obviously, beating Lincoln 2-1, but then you've drawn to Charlton, lost to Hull, drew to Hull. You then lost to Lincoln, lost to Sunderland twice. Obviously, that game against Sunderland away from home was very dramatic. Drew against Peterborough and lost to Blackpool, and obviously drew at our place as well. And then you lost to Portsmouth and drew to them. Obviously, your current form with scoring goals, etc., is exceptional, but they are against the lower sort of side. So I'll come to you first, Steve. How do you think you're going to cope with playing us again? Obviously, it didn't score against us. I know form guide kind of goes out the window, but what's been the main reason you haven't scored a lot of goals or picked up many points versus those top 8?
Well, I mean, I'd start with saying we beat the teams we needed to beat to be in the position we are. If you look at the league table, like the teams you basically mentioned are teams above us. So I guess we're in the right fair spot for that. But in terms of why we didn't outperform those teams, I think for a large portion of the season, we've been trying to find ourselves. So I think with the better teams that are more structured and whatnot, they've had their own game plans and they've been able to sort of, come at us with that in mind. Whereas for ourselves, when we're playing the lower teams in the league, we can perhaps afford ourselves a few mistakes or whatnot, but the bigger teams have punished us. Through periods of the season, we've had definitely not sort of dry spells, which hasn't helped. I can think of like the Peterborough games, for example, that was like that. But I can't really pin it down to anything in particular. Like we've been playing decent throughout the 2/3 of the season, really. But those big games, when it's come to it, we've just not really kicked on. Unfortunately, it's been a bit frustrating, if I'm honest, because I think if we've got a few more points there, we could have been top of the playoffs, if not even pushing beyond that. But those games just haven't played out, unfortunately. But it's hard to really pin why that is, I would say.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because we're the mirror opposite, Sean, aren't we? We're quality against the quality, and we can't seem to do anything against the tin potters of the division.
Yeah, I think that obviously we were able to stifle them at the back and frustrate these teams. You get into the latter stages of games. I mean, the amount of late goals that we scored. Look at Jerry Yates' goal at Portsmouth away, for example. We start to get confidence and gain confidence about the fact that we can take more risks as the game goes on because we can rely on the defence to keep that clean sheet where they need to. The amount of times we've won by the odd goal. And if we just keep doing that, then ultimately we can do the same here. It's that frustration, I think, that tends to kick into sides. You see them starting to get more and more wound up. Sunderland looked really frustrated in both of the games as you got into the final half hour because they kind of just had this stern force almost at the back for Blackpool. I mean, the goals conceded rate in 2021 is absolutely ridiculous. And if you're looking for positives going into the game, then it's definitely our defensive front. But at the same time, obviously, Oxford are quite a clinical side in the league at the moment, and I think as much as we like to think that, you know, we can give Jerry H one chance and he'll score in recent times, we have been quite wasteful with chances and opportunities to really kill off games that we could have killed off a lot sooner. And we need to be clinical in these games. We won't have the amount of chances that we have in league games. These tend to be tighter affairs anyway in playoffs. And if that's the case, then it's all about the clinical edge from both sides, I think.
And Adam, is it a concern from you that you haven't picked up many points against the top 8? So you might go into the game and Blackpool might be blocking you off, or it might be sort of quite tight, and you'll get frustrated potentially.
I'm not too worried about the fact that the record against the top 8. It's more your defence that worries me in terms of your defensive record. I mean, it's going to sound like a bit of a hard luck story, but aside from those opening 10 or 11 games where we were really struggled, I know we've lost against or drawn against the top 8 sides a lot, but we haven't played badly. And you're saying about being clinical there. We've scored a lot of goals, but we probably could have been more clinical as well. And the story of our season in a lot of games is we haven't finished teams off when we should have done. And because of that, we've ended up on the wrong side of a few results. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about the form overall against the top 8, but it does concern me that obviously you guys don't ship many goals at all. I think you've got one of the best defensive records in the league in terms of goals conceded. So it's just about how we manage to break that down. I mean, we're quite a patient side. We pass the ball around, we play the ball out from the back, and we'll wait for those chances to come. But sometimes, if our scorer, such as our strikers in Matty Taylor and Elliot Lee have recently sort of playing in the number 10 role, if they're not scoring, then sometimes we struggle to find a goal elsewhere on the park. So yeah, it's all about that 90 minutes is very cliche to say it, but it's all about that 90 minutes and how specifically you set up against us and how we break that down.
So Tom, there's an interesting comment that's just come in from Ellis Liam 95. Tight, cagey matches will suit us perfectly. If the game becomes open, that will suit Oxford, I think, and that's a fair point, I think.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because at their place, I was expecting a different Oxford side, but I think we'll come on to it a bit later on where we talk about the previous meetings between the two. But I genuinely believe that was one of Blackpool's biggest turning points in the season, or certainly a game where I looked at it and said, wow, we've come against Oxford away from home and we've probably played defensively in terms of pressure and I know it's 2 set pieces, but second half we had some good counter attacks as well. And I don't think Oxford, they had a chance. I think it was Sykes who knocked it wide from about 5 or 6 yards. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a sitter and they should have scored. So, they had their chances in that game, but ultimately we were the better side. And I think they are a different side now. And as Adam just alluded to, they're scoring a lot of goals, 6-0, 4-0s, 4-1s. And it's always nice when, your team's performing like that and everything seems to be going in. Whereas we're kind of the polar opposite. We don't do that. We sort of like to see games out, settle in matches and take our chances when they come along. So I think it's perfectly summarised there. I think if we control the game and we attack sort of like we know we can, we will get 1 or 2 chances. But if we let Oxford keep the ball and we start slow, as we have done at home and away this season at some points during that sort of 16-game unbeaten run, then they only need sort of an early goal to smell the blood and make us work.
So, Steve, Adam, how do you think Oxford will start this game? Do you think you've been scoring a lot of early goals, I've noticed, in your last few games. So do you think you'll try and come at Blackpool quick, fast and early? Because we are very good at counter-attacking and scoring goals on the break. So do you think Carl Robinson will be aware of that fact and it'll just be a kind of a game of chess while each team sorts it, so, like probes for the first kind of 15 minutes? Steve, to you on that? Yeah,
sure. So I'd love to think so, given recent form that we'd go out, especially at home. But given the Portsmouth experience last season, I can imagine it'll be the opposite. It'll be a cagey affair. No one wants to give that first goal away, and it'll be quite dry again. I think. It would suit us, I think, if we were to go for you. And if you look at the Burn game, Burn had been in amazing form, and we absolutely smashed them at the weekend. Got the early goal and just carried on from there. we need that to happen again from an Oxford point of view. That would be great. You know, that's what we should aim for, because Burton, their form is similar to ours and yourselves, really. They were there, weren't there for the taking or anything. So, you know, that was a fantastic result for us, and obviously we needed it. So we should carry that same momentum of knowing every game is a final, and go for it. Because when we go to your place, that's not going to do us any favours going there with a 1-1 or a 0-0, whatever. I think we need to go there in the lead to give us a chance, really. So I think we should be pushing, really. But I don't think we will.
Adam, how do you think those? How do you think? Sorry, Tom. Adam, just how do you think the Oxford will set up and start the game?
I think it's stick to what we're good at. I think based on Carl Robinson's sort of the way that he sets us up, I think he'll go for it straight away. There is the risk that that we'll get caught on the break. It happens when you play the style of football that we do, but we've got a good, if Sam Long's fit at right back, our back four are solid enough to play well. So I think you've just got to let him play, and we've got to stick to our strengths. Go straight out for that early goal, and just play how we know to play, and hope we don't get caught on the break. So I don't think he's going to change that at all. So yeah, I'd like to see us go straight for it.
Do you think it's in the minds of the players that, obviously the manager's saying, good, just play your usual game, go out and play as you approach any other game. But do you think it's mentally in there? We mustn't concede early, and that's why it makes these games cagey.
I think it's always going to be, isn't it? I mean, of course it is. Players don't want to be chasing a game certainly early, but isn't it better? If you're going to concede at all, it's better to concede early rather than late, right? Because then you've got the rest of the time to get back. So yeah, I think Oxford do a lot of work around sort of the mental aspect of the game. We've got I think his name's Gary Bloom, who does a lot of like sports psychology and stuff. So I'm pretty sure they're going to have talked about all that sort of side of stuff and really sort of drummed it into the players. So I'm quite confident when it comes to how strong mentally as a side we are. So I think if they just stick to what they know, we'll be fine.
Nice message from Coach Critchley. I can see the fear in your eyes, the quiver in your voice. You don't have mine. Welcome back, Coach. Sean, just come to you regarding quickly just touch upon our record against the top 8, and I appreciate, like I said, form goes out the window a little bit, but it puts us in good stead that we know how to deal with the better sides, and that's a compliment to Oxford. That apart from the early sort of form against teams like Charlton and Lincoln, when we were a bit of a mess, with every time we've come up against the likes of Peterborough, Sunderland, we've either showed resilience or we've shown how good we can be. Polar opposites to that, Sunderland being away at the last sort of 10-15 minutes. I know they had us on, but and at home as well, we showed we can defend, even down to the keeper, of course. But at Peterborough at home, we were like an unstoppable force, especially with the early goal and then the second half performance, which was very easy on the eye.
Yeah, I think the resilience is the key word there. I think whenever we've sort of had a bit of a knock, we were saying earlier in the other week, show about over the season, and you're thinking every 3 or 4 games we'd go on a run and then we'd have a little blip, and you thought that was going to be the tail of the season. But since that sort of change against Ipswich away after that defeat, we were relentless, and we've done that against every team now. There's just that pure confidence, I think, running through the squad. I heard Luke Garbett talking on BBC 5 Live the other day, and it's just that pure confidence in exactly what they're doing. Everyone knows their specific defined role. No matter who comes in, it's interchangeable. He mentioned about the interchangeability of the side, about the different defensive partnerships and things like that, and how everyone just knows exactly what each position holds in that system and what's required to do it. And if everyone's up to that standard, regardless of who the individual is, then it's inevitable that we're going to carry on beating these sorts of teams, because I think, personally, that we are more detailed in our tactical play, in our tactical setups and tactical shapes than most in the division. And in terms of looking at oppositions and tweaking based on them, I don't think there's a better manager in the league to do that than Neil Critchley has done this season. And that's why we're so good against the better sides. And I think sometimes that's why I feel like we overanalyze the lower teams sometimes, when really, if you just get down to basics and play your game, you'll sort of wipe aside these teams. I think we were going into those games sort of trying to play to the way they were playing, whereas obviously we've got the talent there to be able to win those games anyway. And I think that's where the difference lies for me, and that's why I think that we'll probably get through this game just.
So you think it's kind of a Critchard's approach in this game, like all games like a game of chess almost, where he's trying to outthink them, and we should be just playing against the lesser teams, more of a direct brand of football, and just go at them. So yeah, that's an interesting point, sure.
Just a quick one on the psychological side, Adam. Although you've got this person, Mr. Bloom, whatever his name is.
Oh, you have got Oxford University just down the road as well. You cheat.
Do you think
you've invented a vaccine? Think you can nick in the goalie football psychology as well?
You probably know what's coming, but do you think he should pass on a message to Carl Robinson, because he seems to lose his head quite a lot during the season? That, kind of meant in jest, but at the same time is quite serious, because that sort of the ruckus at Sunderland, and he's been in trouble a couple of times this season in terms of his comments, etc. It's good to see the passion, but at that point you don't want him to overthink things or lose his head during the playoff.
He's in the stand for all the playoffs, so he won't be able to. So because he's banned for the 3 matches because of the ruckus at Sunderland. I think maybe, but sometimes I think with Robertson, sometimes it's actually he does boil over and get over emotional, but sometimes I think it's a bit tactical that he does that to try and G up the players sometimes. I'm not really sure on the ins and outs of what happened at Sunderland, but apparently one of their staff punched our keeper in the tunnel, and Robinson says that he was getting involved to protect our staff, but because he already had a previous sanction, he then got slapped with a more serious sanction, which seemed a little bit unfair, to be honest. I'd say overall he's actually calmed down compared to how he was when he first came in. And we have a history of passionate managers. Just look at Appleton before as well. So I think we need a bit of that sometimes. Sometimes in games, certainly from a fan's perspective, we think, sometimes you don't. Maybe it's because the players seem a bit too calm. Sometimes you want somebody to sort of cheer them up a little bit.
No, I completely agree. And just moving on to formations, because recently you've been playing. I come to you, Steve. You've been playing 4-3-3, haven't you? But Goran has been left out, and you've played sort of more traditional wingers in sort of centre mid. So you've kind of got 6 attackers up top with.
Is themselves exposed at the back. That's what we want.
It's actually like 6 attackers and 2 wing backs. It's kind of like 8 in a way.
So you got obviously Brannigan, Henry, and Sykes that have made up that midfield 3. But Brannigan's going to have to do a lot more defensive work, because he's usually a bit more attacking than defensive, isn't he? So he's going to have to do more of the defensive sort of mop ups, because it's certainly not going to come from Sykes or Henry, is it?
He's really actually showed that in the last few matches. So obviously Goran was sort of the linchpin to play that sort of defensive midfield role, and we thought, like, with Goran in the side, we were like, he's crucial. He's always on the starting 11. But then since he picked up a bit of had a bit of a health issue and has been out, Brannigan's sort of fallen into that role, and he's played it superbly in the last in the tail end of the season. So Brannigan's really proving that he's an all-round decent player. So no concerns that Brannigan will be able to pick up that role and play it well.
And I know you've scored a lot of goals, but how has sort of Sykes and Henry sort of adapted to that sort of midfield 3 rather than playing as out-and-out wingers? Obviously, you've used your more traditional centre forwards as sort of in a front 3 as well. Are you surprised with how they've sort of changed and how they've sort of pushed you to this position you're in, Steve?
We need a virtual stick to prod them with, don't we?
It's a weird. Sykes is an interesting case in point, I guess, because you mentioned in that game against your Styles when he missed that sitter in the 6-yard box or whatever, and Robinson's been on this case quite a bit this season because he's got so much potential, but he doesn't quite realise it all the time. But in recent weeks, I guess in the run-in, the last 7 games, he's been brilliant, and he's been, between him and Henry, they've been kind of switching and playing with the wingers and swapping places and whatnot. And it's kind of allowed us to be a bit more fluid, because obviously there are attacking players in mind. So the 3 in front, the 2 either side of them, I guess, in front, allows them to sort of switch around and stuff. And with the full-backs bombing on as well, there's quite a lot of fluidity on each side of the flanks. So it's worked quite well, I think, in the main. I think it does leave us a little bit vulnerable, of course, because there's so many attacking-minded players in the team there. But I think it's led us to, and John will probably like this quote, but I guess it's kind of led us to be a bit more like Kevin Keegan in the way we just try and outscore the opposition rather than take a strategic sort of approach to things. It's been entertaining to watch, but you can look at that results and see the number of goals or 3-2s that we've had and whatnot. It's very Kevin Keegan-esque from that era, so it's quite funny in that regard. And long may it continue, I guess.
Have you still got that Rangers player? What's his name?
Brandon Barker.
Yeah. Brandon Barker, is he still with you? Because he was on loan, wasn't he? From
so we rested him for the Burton game so he can tear you guys up next week. So
I was hoping that they'd recalled him.
No, he's well rested and ready to go. Just a note on Sykes as well. Sykes hasn't actually scored for us since the playoff final against Wickham last season, so he's saving them. He's saving them up for the big games.
Did you not see Brandon Barker on that bridge over the celebrating with all the Rangers fans? He got a good hide.
John, let's keep that down, please.
He's a Celtic fan, by the way. I got some got chucked off the bridge, so he won't be playing.
Sean, I'll come to you. We've obviously conceded 16 goals in 2021, and this is, like you say, a free scoring team versus a defensive sort of machine. How do you think we'll go for 3-5-2 with our formation, or do you think, as Tim said in the chat, that we might go to 4-4-2 and try to sort of contain them a little bit more?
I think we'll go 3-5-2, especially against a team like Oxford. You look at the control of the midfield. We were in those two games where we sort of slipped up at home consecutively. It was that control of the midfield. We were quite passive in our play, quite static in our movement, and we never had that extra man there to be able to provide the support and the extra pass when you need it. I think since this 3-5-2 has come in, I mean, you can only look at the chance creation stats. It's completely improved and turned on its head from where we were struggling to create in a few games. I think as well, you're looking at Oxford. I know obviously Goran's been out of the side, but personally, if I was Oxford, I would put Goran back into the side, because I think that it's all well and good sort of with the all-out attack approach against most teams, but I think because we're so defensively proficient, you're going to need that extra support in the midfield to be able to break up our play on the counter and have that extra defensive support. And I feel like perhaps that's missing with all of the attacking options that are in there. And I mean, you've conceded twice against Gillingham, twice against Shrewsbury, twice against Wimbledon. These are teams that we've sort of shut out in the whole and on the main. And I think that if you look at where we're going in terms of this 3-5-2, you've got the overload in the midfield, you've got the ball in behind with Sims and Yates. I mean, I would play Anderson, and the link up that he's had recently with our forward line has allowed us to play through the thirds quite easily. And then obviously we can always rely on the defence. So that's where I just think you've got to stick with what we've been doing well at the moment.
And John, I'll just come to you that Sean's just alluded to with Sims and Yates in that 3-5-2. He's really come alive, especially we saw when Keshi was introduced against Doncaster. That front three was really quite threatening. But the thing I love most about Yates and Sims has come alive in the last few weeks, is how they run their channels and sort of bring teams wider. Do you think he'll start Sims and Yates again on Tuesday?
I think he's got to, hasn't he? Based on the performances Ellis Sims been putting in over the last few games. And I think he will stick with the what are we calling it, a 5-3-2 or formation?
It changes, doesn't it, when we're defending? So yeah, both correct. Yeah.
I think Luke Garbutt's going to play a very key role.
Yeah.
Particularly in that sort of advanced kind of wing back role, because he knows he's got the cover of James Husband in there, because he provides that defensive cover for him when he can be a bit suspect, and it gives him that license to go forward. So I think that's going to be the key area for Blackpool. And yeah, with Sims, I fully expect Sims to start with Joey Yates.
Yeah, Sean, I'll just quickly come to you on John's comment that Garbutt in the last few weeks is fast becoming one of my favourite players, because we've seen that freedom that John's alluded to, that because he's being covered, he's gone to do what he loves to do most. And it's a real good example. When we played Northampton, Yates had the ball and you see him come out inside of the left-hand side, just into picture, and then about 2 seconds later slammed the ball home. It's a bit similar to what he did against Burton as well. So do you think he's going to play a big part, like John said, on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think so. I think you look at his movement off the ball, he's always in the right positions. He really knows that position really well. It's obviously clearly playing wing back in a back five is definitely the best place that he's been. And I mean, it's less defensive responsibility when you know that you've got 3 centre-halves there and you can take more risks in that position. And again, you look at his set-piece deliveries, when they're on point, they're a big plus as well. I mean, obviously, we scored the 2 set-piece goals away at Oxford, and if it comes down to it, especially in narrow, tight affairs like this, if you've got a good set-piece delivery, that's always going to help your cause. So again, he'll probably, no doubt, have a big part to play.
Yeah, just a comment coming in here. We'll come to the Oxford boys in a second, but a few questions around Blackpool. Tim's just put, my concern is Turton. Where does he fit? So do you think he was just going to go with the same team, or do you think he's going to go with Gabriel?
Is that for me? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Sean.
Yeah. Obviously, if Karkai's fit, that's a really difficult one for me, I think, because Karkai was superb up until he got his knock. But Anderson's come in and he just looks so good, and it's more the link-up play with the rest of the team. And we struggle to have a player that grabs the game by the scruff of the neck and can drive you forward in when you're starting to sort of slack off a bit. I think Anderson's added that in, and I think that Karkai doesn't particularly have that about his game, and that's where I probably just shade Anderson ahead of Karkai if it was that they were both fully fit to start. I mean, for me, Embleton doesn't get anywhere near the starting lineup at the moment, especially if Karkai's fit. I don't think he's there. With Turton, I would obviously play Gabriel in a back five. I always pick Gabriel. Turton's been immense, but I said it on the last pod, I just think that Gabriel offers more going forward, and I think he's just defensively stable. He's only slightly shades at Turton, but in this sort of game, especially in a 3-5-2 system, that's not what the position is there for. You're not there to be defensively solid. It's more about what you can offer going back to front, positional sense, awareness of the space, intelligence and vision of pass. And I think that Gabriel can mix up his game quite a lot more than Turton can. And I just think that will be the best way to go with the number 10 in the right wing back position.
No, I agree. No, probably agree on Keshi as well. As harsh as on Guy, obviously started the season, he was quite poor, but Keshi is hungry, you can tell, and it's not a bad sub to bring on either way, is it? Whether it's Keshi, whether it's Guy as well. But we're going to move on to some statistics from our Stato, Sean, in a second, which Steve will love. But just want to quickly touch upon your key players. Have you got Atkinson and Moore? Obviously, decent centre-back partnership, but Taylor's got 18 goals and in fine form recently, and Henry's chipped in with 7 goals and 6 assists. Joe Ruffles has got 6 and 6, which has been a quality signing for you this season. Who do you think is going to be your key player? I'll go to you first, Adam, on Tuesday. And is it the obvious Taylor, or is it someone sort of more in the side that you think is going to be key to you winning this time?
For me, as always already been mentioned, I know Sean said about thinking that they should bring Gorin back in. I disagree. Brannigan playing that defensive midfield role, which he's done in the last sort of 10 or so games in our good run of form. He's proving that he's actually better at playing that role, possibly, debatably better than Gorin. Certainly at the moment, he's key to obviously making sure that he protects our defence. Doesn't get a rush of blood. I mean, he's used to being more of an attacking player, but he can unleash a shot if he needs to. But as long as he sticks to that defensive position, then he's perfect. He's perfect in that role. Obviously, you want Taylor to score your goals for you, but for me, the other key one in there is Henry. Henry, we always play better when James Henry is on form, and when he's had his dips in form this season. That's coincided with our poor performances. So if Henry's on form, then the team will play better overall. So
stop Carl Henry, stop Oxford. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
I think Henry's going to be really crucial. So yeah, if they can stifle Henry, then it will hurt us overall as a team. So.
Yeah. We're responsible for a lot of victories for Blackpool this season, aren't we, boys? Our opinions rang true. Our team selections rang true. So I'm sure the boys are listening to this. So there you go. If Carl Henry gets stopped, Adam, it's your fault.
I don't know why ex-Wolves defensive midfielder Carl Henry is playing for Oxford. But
Sorry.
We'll go. Okay. I mean, he must be bringing him out. It's like the Undertaker coming out for the 90th minute, ready for Carl Henry.
John, I think you've swapped places with Tim tonight. And you're sitting in a crypt all of a sudden.
No, I don't know what's happened.
Sunset in the north.
There's dark clouds come over. Is that a sign?
That's a sign.
Is it a sign?
It's getting on to the 40-minute mark, so we're just going to go, and I'm not going to waste a banner. This is all for Sean. Sean's got some statistics he's just written down. So over to you, Sean.
Yeah, first of all, I'll go on the Oxford side of things. I looked at Experimental 361 today, which is a really good site. They do some really good metrics, and they're quite easy to understand as well. They do really good graphics for that. So I'd probably suggest most people have a look at there if they want to get into this sort of thing. Not really that focused on XG, but in terms of Oxford, they're the most efficient team in terms of goals. On average, for every 8 shots that they've taken, they've scored a goal, and they average 14 shots per match, which is essentially basically around 2 goals a game. And Blackpool, on the other hand, are quite average in terms of the table. Oxford are the best in the league at that. And then you're looking defensively as well. On the other hand, like we've been saying, Oxford are so good going forward, but Blackpool defensively are the most effective in the division. Basically, for every 12 shots that they face, they concede 1 goal. So essentially, it takes 1.5 games for an opposition to score against Blackpool this season, which bodes well for a 2-game playoff race. You're waiting 1.5 games on average for that. And in terms of the XG, I mean, in terms of goals, it's actually not been too bad in terms of chance creation for Blackpool. It's 1.4 over the season 4. Oxford have just shaded us with 1.5. But then obviously it's that defensive unit that's been so strong for Blackpool. Conceded an average of 0.8 XG against, which is the best in the division by a country mile. To have below 1 throughout a 46-game season is pretty astonishing, really. And it just pays testament to how well we've been defensively. Oxford have conceded 1.2 per game. So, but also as well, importantly, in the last 6 games, both Blackpool and Oxford have had the highest rates of chance creation throughout the season. And if obviously we're going into these games, if that's going to go into these games and translate as well, then there should be plenty of chances in the game for both sides.
Just for the people that don't understand XG, like John, in 10 seconds, just explain what XG is.
It's basically chance creation based on the type of shot, where it's played on the pitch. So say you're inside the 6-yard box and your XG rate is going to be maybe 0.7, let's say, out of 1. So it's basically you've got a 70% chance of scoring a goal from that position. And then obviously it translates, obviously, as you're further away from goal, the more difficult the chance, the less percentage it is. And then you add up all your chances throughout the game to get that initial XG number for each game.
Like that.
That helps.
WFC. I'm after my own heart here. XG stats cause managers to make their teams piss about trying to play 300 passes.
Disagree. That, do you know what was bad about it? Right. So everyone used to go on about pass success rate, and that used to be the massive thing. Everyone used to go on about pass success rate. And then you had Scott Brown in the Champions League with the highest pass succession rate because he used to just play it 5 yards back to his centre halves. And everyone thought that made a good midfielder, whereas XG and stats like that and like forward creation passes, pass per defensive action helps sort of give context to passes and stuff. It gives context to the game is what I'm saying.
There you go, Dan. Context to the game.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I remember, what was it? We were like 12th, and Sean said, "There's a run coming soon." This was just after the Ipswich game. He said our chance creation's been like 1.6 for like 3 or 4 in a row. I can't for the life of me remember what pod, but I'd love to get the clip up. But he said there's a run coming very soon because our XG is too much for it to not happen. And lo and behold, we went on this crazy run, and you know, it's just to put it into context as well, like Sunderland, they had a 1.5 XG against Blackpool, and we had like a 0.44. They absolutely battered us for most of the game. We didn't have many chances, and obviously it was a bit of a sort of snatch and grab with the 1-0s, but I believe in it. And the only issue is that Sunderland's the last 3 games has been about 1.8, so hopefully they don't go on a mini run in the next 3 games also. So moving on, the previous matches this season, bit of a non-goer at Bloomfield Road. It was a 0-0. Can't really remember too much of the game. I remember Oxford having some decent chances. The main chance at the end with John, if you can remember, Chris Maxwell's save onto the post, which I still, with the Sunderland save, think is one of the best saves I've seen this season.
Yeah, it was. Well, take your pick from Maxwell's super save this season. But my memory of that game, I'm sure Steve will back me up here, is that we absolutely battered you. And you scabbed it. You scabbed a point. He scabbed a point, but it was revenge for the previous season's game that we take much glee in mentioning week after week on this show.
Yeah. I feel like that was kind of the sort of yardstick for your season, that game, mate. Sort of it's kicked you on from that point ever on, really. Still in that 2-1 win.
Sean, the game at Blueford Road is obviously, with the breaks we've had due to COVID and stuff, was probably two teams at a struggling point of the season. So 0-0 probably suited sort of the form at the time.
Yeah, I mean, probably one of the least memorable games of the season. I mean, I have literally no idea what happened in that game. I don't think I ever will know what happened in that game because I'm not going to look back at it. But I think, as Steve was saying as well, the season before, I think that was sort of Oxford being able to take something out of that game. Definitely, so they deserved it after all of the chances that they made in that game under Grayson back in the year. I don't have any idea how we won that game. And I mean, Jesus Christ, the amount of chances that Oxford had. I was like, I want to go home in about the 80th minute. And they just kept coming and kept coming.
Oh, it was so funny, wasn't it, Steve? It was so funny.
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed every minute, mate. Yeah, the long walk back to the pub after. Jesus. And everyone
so we had £2 for £1, though, didn't we?
We did.
What was it, that £2 bakery? Even though it was £1, but they had an offer on £2 for £1, which Steve was amazed with.
Well, even a pint in Blackpool's cheap, isn't it, compared to where from? So sort of loving it, mate. I think I took a tenner with me.
That's why I support Blackpool from Ipswich. I got round in once for like 5 years, like £6.
It's brilliant.
I just stuck with it. Just stuck with Blackpool at that point.
There's definitely pros to it, definitely.
Thankfully, the dog will be open tomorrow for all that cheap ale. So I think the majority of people will be going to the Armfield, though, won't they, to watch the game?
Yeah.
No, I am.
Adam, I'll come to you. Obviously, you said you're impressed with Blackpool in the 2-0 sort of game at the Kassam. Like I said, I think just generally the 2 goals were pretty decent. I know the first one, a bit of a scramble, but the second one was a decent header and a good delivery. Do you think Robinson's learnt from that, or do you think it's going to be two completely different, sort of a completely different game based on we play a different system now, and you do play a different system now? So how do you think sort of Tuesday will differ to that game?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as I said, you played such a good game against us in terms of completely stifled us. So they're going to have broken it down, analysed it to death and gone, right, we've got to make sure you don't do that again to us. And they'll look at the outlets of where they can make sure it doesn't happen. So we've also got, we've got one player I didn't mention before is Brandon Barker. If he comes in fit, he's such a pacey player, and he's a match winner there in terms of he can hurt teams. So in a tight game, he can take
what wing does he play
on,
Adam? Sorry to interrupt. What wing does he play on, Barker?
He's been playing on the left for us. He's been playing on the left.
Ooh, Turton or Gabriel then against Barker. I think I'd rather have Turton against him.
Yeah, but Turton will be at the back and Gabriel will be too busy going forward and creating chances and scoring goals and stuff and all that, so it wouldn't matter.
It's an interesting one. That's the biggest mystery for me in terms of what Robinson will do with that left-sided position. We've obviously got Ruffles, who plays as the wing-back on the left side, but we've also had Shadipo that's played on the left side predominantly throughout the season. He's our second top scorer. He's not really he's not really had the form in the last sort of quarter of the season that he had early on. However, he did score. He did score against Burton. So it'd be interesting to see if he drops Shadipo and puts Barker in from the start, with Barker having not been fit, but is apparently now well rested. So yeah, that's the biggest question mark over our starting 11, with the aside of Sam Long, whether he's fit or not. Other than that, I'm pretty confident he'll go.
Just on Shadipo, obviously scored quite a lot of penalties this season, which they all count. I'm not dismissing that, but it's just because of the goals from outside of penalties. Has he been a bit of a luxury player like we had with Kai at the start of the season? It's kind of one you think you need to start, but ultimately isn't always the player you expect to be. Or has he actually been quite consistent this year? He's
been on and off. He's been on fire on Tuesday nights. So most of his goals have been on Tuesday nights.
Right. He's going to be dropped anyway, so it's right.
So yes, but I think he's only scored the one penalty. He's only scored the one penalty. Yeah. But he's scored 12 goals, 10 in the league. But yeah, he goes missing in games. That's the problem with him. Sometimes he's just if if he's not in it in the first 15 minutes, you might as well sub him off then, to be honest. So,
oh wow,
he can go missing.
More good intel.
So, but yeah, he's on fire on Tuesday night, so that's why I'm very interested to see whether he starts or whether he's dropped in place of Barker.
Well, the game's kicking off a bit early, so maybe that'll go against him. It's sort of late afternoon, very early evening. So,
usually putting the kids to bed at that time, mate.
All these parameters.
We'll come on to just key decisions. Just as you sort of alluded to, does he drop Shadipo or not? Sean, I'll come to you first. We won't talk about the defence because we know you really love Turton. So let's talk centre back. Do you think Thornley's going to start over Marv's? For me, he probably has to. And it's going to hurt you saying this, so I can edit it out afterwards. But
no. I think it's not going to happen. But I would drop Husband for Ekpiteta in the back three.
What?
Wow. I would keep Thornley in there.
Wow.
Because Ekpiteta's literally like him and Ballard are our best defenders.
He's rusty,
playing the playoffs.
He's rusty.
Yeah. You step up when you need to at the end of the day. Like, I just think, I mean, Husband, he literally came off the pitch because he absolutely lost his head a couple of weeks ago, and I thought that had sort of gone away from him. But I do love James Husband. I'm already backtracking now, but I'm just going to say it as well. This is going to be an even more mental opinion from me. I think Thornley is the key to us winning the playoffs.
Yes,
because I think that he's been very stable the past 2 games, and I think if he continues in that vein in a back three where he's able to drop off, he's not got as much of an emphasis on having to hold an offside trap, to have the positional sense and things like that. It's not as much of a priority in a back three because the idea is that the ball comes over the top. The first defenders go and react to it, and then the central defender drops deeper in to clean it up. And if Thornley's been doing that really well the past 2 games, if he can do that again, then he is the man that will probably be the deciding factor in whether we win the playoffs or not. But I would still probably get rid of him because we want to play we're going to play a back 4 eventually next season when everyone's fit, and I don't think he suits that. But yeah, there you go.
You know that thing to your right shoulder, Sean? Is it like a hamster cage, or
is it a hamster cage?
Is it a hamster cage, or is it some sort of series of crack pipes?
He's on the pre-match bongs.
He's got some extra ingredients in his bongs, though, isn't he? Oh, that's a
Steve summed it up.
Controversial shout.
For me, you don't start Marv just based on, and I love Marv's. I've been an advocate for him.
He's our best defender alongside Ballard.
Come on, we're in the
playoffs.
But listen,
what do we pay him for?
Playing
He's
that
there to step up.
Not like he did against the Bristol Rovers. Anyway, we can't afford him to.
You know, Ekpiteta's an ex-Oxford reject who never made it into our starting 11. So
you
might want to play him
against
him. You might want to play him against us. Right. So, come back to
start him now.
That's the 90th minute. It's going to be great.
These little pearls of wisdom coming out, eh? It's why you're here, viewers. It's why you're here.
I take it all the Blackpool side are agreed on. We should probably play 3-5-2 with Sims and Yates. Can't decide, but John, would you start Keshi over Kai, or even both? Sean, maybe.
Which one was that? Sorry.
Would you start? Who would you start in the front behind sort of Yates and Sims?
Oh, definitely Keshi. If Kaikai's fit, then there's a decision to make. I think potentially he may start Kai to then bring Keshi on against tired legs in the hour mark. I feel like Keshi can affect a game better off the bench than Kai potentially can. I feel like Kai likes to sort of ease his way into a game, get the feel of the game, and then play. And that's where potentially he may play Kai instead. He can't play Embleton for me. He doesn't offer enough in that 10 role. He's not as good as those 2 players. Those players, you see when they play. I mean, we thought we were doing okay with Embleton in the 10, and then Keshi came back and was like, "Oh, this is what you're missing," and it's like that's what we have been missing throughout. I just think you can't play Embleton, and I feel like he may do. I don't know what it is, but I feel like he might.
I know what you mean,
sure.
I know.
I just have this feeling that he's going to play Embleton. I mean, I have this feeling that he's definitely going to play Turton at right wing back. As much as I want Gabriel to play there, he's probably going to do that. And I think You just
I think you're right. Sean. I think you're right saying if Kai is fit, I think he should play 60 minutes. And I think because Kai is more of a goal threat for me in that playing that number 10 in behind the front two, and he's just got a goal in him from nothing, as we've seen, particularly against Sunderland. And I think with Keshi coming on, like you say, when Kai does tend to drift from 60 minutes onwards, so I think that's probably the best way we should deal with those. Tom, you're shaking your head there.
No. I agree with you. I'm just still annoyed that he might play Embleton on Tuesday.
He can't. Is it going to be our WFH moment when we see the team sheet?
The reason, and I know what Sean's saying, he shouldn't start, but you think he might. The reason he doesn't start for me now, sits on the bench, is because if it's all ifs and buts, but if he was to play Sunderland in the final, there's no point playing 2 key matches with him and then not being able to play him. So, and he's not our player, whereas we go with what we've got, in my opinion. And his form's been dreadful. But
I think what's important, sorry, with Keshi as well, is he's made Sims play better. So there's a parallel between Keshi coming back into the side and Sims playing well. Sims has a lot of confidence in him. They have a good understanding of where they move. Sims' movement is really, really good off the ball when he gets going. And Keshi understands that, and he's able to feed these balls through. And it's whether Kai has the same. You haven't seen it yet, so you don't really know in terms of now Sims has got this burst of form, whether that is the catalyst. But I think that he's allowed Sims to play with more freedom and more confidence and not have to do as much off the ball.
Keshi and Yates as well. Let's not dismiss the fact they played a season together at Swindon.
There's that.
Their understanding is phenomenal. But we'll come to the Oxford boys. I'm leaving you guys out a little bit. Is there, other than Barker coming back in, is there any big decisions, Steve, that Robinson needs to make on Tuesday, or is the run you've been on kind of selecting the team itself? Sorry.
I think you're right. Generally, it does select itself based on recent form. I think the key one that Adam mentioned before was Sam Long. He pulled his hamstring in the Burton game, so we expect him to be out, but it's been very hush-hush as to how bad that was. I don't think either of us even know now, so we hope he's back because he's been brilliant, but
breaking news.
Hamstring you out, aren't you?
Yeah, I was hoping it wouldn't be a bad thing, but I guess...
How good is he, Steve? How key is he to your team?
It's a weird one because he's been in the club a long time. He's from Oxfordshire himself, so he's kind of been a squad player for a long time. But he kind of fell into the team this season through lack of signing somebody else, and just got stronger and stronger as the season's gone on. And it's been brilliant. He's been scoring goals and assists as well, as with Ruffles on the other side. So they've been both brilliant, bombing on alongside the midfielders as well. So it's going to be a big miss for us from an attacking point of view as well as anything else. But I guess we'll probably play forward in exchange for that. Which is another attacker in many ways to fill that gap. So we'll end up with another attacking midfielder in the wrong place, trying to score a goal from God knows where.
It's like FIFA, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah. It's worked though. I mean, as much as we kind of look at it and go, it doesn't make sense. It's been a weird season, and we fell into something that's worked for us. So I guess as long as it carries on that way, then why not change it?
And Adam, would you bring in Barker straight from the off, or would you carry on with Shidopu?
I think he's going to bring. Yeah, I think he'd bring Barker in from the start. Give him the start of the game, and then bring Shajib on once Barker's tied. One thing with Sam Long, just going back to the right back, I think he'll actually start Hansen over Ford. To be honest, Hansen's looked better defensively than Ford has. We conceded a couple of goals where Ford got caught out of position a little bit. Whereas Hansen, again, he's not been a great at right back, but he just seems a little bit more. He normally he's also covered that defensive midfield role that Goran and Brannigan have been playing. So they kind of pushed him out to right back a little bit, and he seemed to do a slightly better job than Ford. So I reckon he'll probably actually, if Long's not fit, I think he'll actually start Hansen there. Just a note on Sam Long as well. He just won our supporters player of the season and the players player of the season in our awards earlier in the week or last week. So yeah, he's going to be a big miss for us. And it's never good when you've got to play somebody out of position to cover one of your fullback roles. So that's the biggest concern for us. I think the rest of the team, as Steve said, selects itself really. And the form that we've been on those sort of last 6 or 7 games, the team really does select itself if the rest of them are fit.
Absolutely. Well, we're on the hour mark, so we've got one last thing to talk about. John, I'll come to you first, and if you've got any favourite sort of playoff moments, guys, get them in the chat and we'll go through them. But I've named this bit the inevitability of Blackpool having to tackle the playoffs rather than going up automatic. The club's record is strong. 16 out of the 23 ties they've taken part in. They've won an unprecedented rate of almost 70% victory, and I think unbeaten in the last 10, isn't it, Sean? The semi-finals. Do you? I know it's a different team and a different manager, but do you think history plays a part in the playoffs a little bit? Just it's kind of that aura about Blackpool being in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there's maybe an element of that. I think that my confidence with Blackpool doesn't particularly come from that this time around. It comes from the confidence of the squad and this sort of inevitability that we go on and win these sorts of games and win these ties. And I think they've got full faith in what they're trying to do, the system, these sort of things. So that's where I think that our faith comes. Generally, but yeah, I mean, we are the most successful playoff team in the history of football league. Just put that there. There's probably some like Hungarian team or something that have done it like 30 times or something. But yeah, so that you can't not bring that up, and it may well cause pressure on the backs of the players. I don't know, but you can't help but bring it up, and we seem to just every time we get in there, that's where we up our game, and I think a lot of it has to do with us in the stands.
Yeah, although the Sky advert for the playoffs that got released today didn't have Oxford or Blackpool in it. So we'll be pleased to know we're both going under the radar. So Adam, I'll come to you. Obviously, Blackpool in decent form. If I'm being honest, I don't know too much about Oxford's like form in the playoffs. Obviously, we had last year's heartbreak. Not intending to bring that up in a bad way, but getting to the final is always brilliant. But have you got any sort of memories in the playoffs that are fond, or are they usually a bit of heartbreak for you?
Our previous playoff appearance was when we got back into the Football League, when we were down in the conference in 2010, and we beat Rushden and Diamonds over 2 legs, and then beat York at Wembley, and that was absolutely fantastic.
3-1, wasn't it?
Certainly. My favourite memory as an Oxford United supporter. I was too young to really remember the Milk Cup final in '86. I was not even 1 year old then. So, but yeah, certainly, that was fantastic. We lost in the semi-finals of the playoffs just 2 seasons prior to that against Exeter. We lost on penalties. So that's our
final.
No, that was over the 2 legs. We beat Exeter 1-0 at their place, and then came back to the Kassam and went 1-0 up. So we were 2-0 up essentially, and then conceded 2 goals, and then lost on penalties. So yeah, it was absolute nightmare and devastating. And that was when we were still sort of a little bit like, oh, we're too big for the conference, and thinking like we'd bounce straight back. And then we ended up having 4 seasons down there, and it being a nightmare to get out of them. So the York victory to get us back into the Football League was even more sweeter because of the disappointment of that playoff loss. And I think round about the following season, we had a points deduction for a non-registered player or something, which made us miss out by the playoffs by a point. So we were having a right nightmare to get out of the conference. So yeah, that was definitely a fantastic memory.
And for those viewers that are not watching, Coach Critchley's just put in beat Rushden and Diamonds, fair play for beating 2.
Should have gone up 2 leagues.
I remember us losing 3-2 to Rushden Diamonds at Bloomfield Road. That was a horrible game. But John, I'll come to you. Obviously, the playoff form, as Sean's alluded to, is brilliant, and we all know as Blackpool fans that we generally come out the end of them in a happy way. But what's your favourite sort of playoff moment?
Okay, so it's obvious we've got the Cardiff beating Cardiff and goes to the Premier League, and as the Nottingham Forest victory in the run up to that. So those are obviously the best, but they're a bit cliche. Just to make this a bit more interesting, then I'll rewind back to the early 90s when my first ever experience of the playoffs was when we were in the Old Money 4th Division, and we had a fantastic season. I think Dave Bamber scored about 38 goals that season. We ended up in the playoffs. We shouldn't have. And the game's gone to penalties, finally poised 5-5. So the guy who's knocked in 38 goals picks up the ball. He's absolutely knackered. Socks are down his ankles. He's trudging over. You think he's going to miss this. Plunks the ball down. He almost hits the corner flag. And that's it. That's your season done. Season done. All on a penalty, sudden death penalty shootout. And the following season, exactly the same things happened. We've gone through all the way through the season, playing really well. We've dropped into the playoffs again on the last day of the season. Scunthorpe in the play. We've got through to the final. Scunthorpe, and exactly the same type of game. We've played really well, and it's gone to penalties again. I remember thinking, this is just going to devastate me if we lose this shootout. Absolutely devastate me. But thankfully, we've won it. Steve McElhog's made a great save. So those are my early memories of the playoffs, and that it's absolutely the best way to go up, but it's the worst way if you're getting in that final and losing. So we do not want to get there. We do not. I'd rather us lose in the semis against Oxford than get to the final and get beat. So
yeah,
may the best team win and then go through and win at Wembley.
Although we have those magic memories, that Vazte goal still breaks my heart. So,
God.
I was consigned we were going to lose that game. I just knew it, even though we played.
Matt Phillips, wasn't it? Had missed about 6 clear-cut chances in the first half, and he just knew then at that point. For that playoff campaign, I watched the Birmingham away leg on a school trip in France. Just like in a random pub in France, they put the game on for us. Our whole class we watched the second leg away at Birmingham.
It was we dominated. Well, we didn't dominate, but we were a better team that day, weren't we? But I was reconciled to defeat because I knew our run was going to come to an end. I just knew it for some reason. I said we couldn't keep winning, but fingers crossed we go all the way again.
Steve, it would be a miss to me. I know you haven't got too much experience with it, but other than you got Oxford memories, but have you got any playoff sort of moments or memories with Oxford or any other team that comes to mind when you mention the word playoffs?
Oh, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about other teams in amongst this. I mean, for ourselves, as Adam sort of covered already, there's not really been all too much. I'm kind of interested more about you guys because, I mean, I've obviously spoken to John at length about this every time. He reminds me countless times that you guys are at the best record. But it's surprising to hear just how many times you guys have been in amongst it in the playoffs rather than even going up, automatically, really. Because for ourselves, it's been so few and far between. But how many times have you guys been in the playoffs?
Steve, I've never seen us go up regularly. I've never seen us. Once in about 1985.
Yeah.
I think that's the only time we've actually gone up without needing a playoff. So every time we've gone up, it's always been by the
If you're good at maths, we've played in 23 playoff ties and won 16 of them. So,
Wow.
So yeah, 12.
Sometimes I don't know about Tom and Sean, but I just want us just to go up without all this.
Oh yeah, well we could have done, couldn't we?
It's great without all this drama. It's great when it's great when you go up via the playoffs, but it's fucking stressful, isn't it?
No, you love it really. You'll be there like hugging random people at Wembley. It's definitely socially distancing throughout the fixture, of course.
I think my favourite moment is when Charlie Adam, knocked in the free kick, and there was about a 6-year-old kid in front of my dad, and he was just grabbing him by the neck and shaking him so aggressively. And the dad just looks up at my dad, and I think my dad's getting knocked out. The small kid's dad grabbed my dad and just hugged him after he's just strangled his kick for about 30 seconds. It brings out all the emotions.
It'd just be quickly remiss of us not to mention this in '96 when Oxford pipped us. In fact, Oxford put us in the playoffs in '96.
Yeah.
To go up automatically. That was the time when we had Sam Allardyce. He'd been given a bit of a war chest to spend. We were flying all season, and we went on this ridiculous run. I think the last 6 games, lost a lot. And Oxford pipped us on the last day. You sent us into the playoffs. We won away at Bradford 2-0 first leg. We were printing directions to Wembley in the second leg programme. What was his name? Chris Kamara was manager of Bradford. And he's going, have you seen this, lads? That's his team talk. He's pinned that up on the dressing room door, and they've beaten us 3-2. That was, without a doubt, my worst moment as a Blackpool fan. Worse than Torquay. Worse than losing that playoff final. So, yeah. Hopefully not another repeat of that.
I know Tim asked about Joey Beecham as well. It's Joey Beecham, by the way, Tim. So that's how you say it. I know he's a fan favourite for you guys.
Sorry, Steve has answered your query. There you go. That's how many times we've taken part in the playoffs.
Wow, look at that. 91, 92, 96, 01, 07, 10, 12, 17. That's for the benefit of the audio pod. Incredible.
So is it more stress-inducing than to have gone through all those different seasons of playoffs?
Josh has summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, there you go.
So being a Blackpool fan has definitely reduced my life expectancy by several years due to the playoffs. But the most comfortable was like Oldham, wasn't it? When I think Keegan Park scored, we scored 2 late goals. Parker Cody, and that was a good semi-final we played. As when Houlihan went round the keeper and absolutely their defender wiped the goalkeeper wiped out their defender.
It was Neil Eardley. It was Neil Eardley playing for Oldham that got wiped out.
6 foot up in the air, didn't he? Houlihan just looked at them both and tapped it in. Right, we'll finish as we usually finish. Sean, we'll start with you and work our way down to Adam in a second. But your score predictions for the game on Tuesday. Are we doing both, John, or do you want to just do Tuesday?
Let's just do tomorrow. Tuesday.
I think we'll win 1-0. I've backed us to win 2-0 the past 4 games now, and I think it's going to be the same again. I don't buy into the playoffs being a different thing. I just think that if you're going in with that momentum, you're going in with. I don't know why I'm saying this now because it's not going to happen. But if I just think if you're going to,
then you believe in XG, Sean.
Yeah, no.
I must believe in the force, Sean.
Your momentum takes you there, and we hardly conceded a goal. We hardly conceded a goal in 2021, and it's just not going to change. I just don't see how it changes because we've taken on the best, we've beaten the best, playing that way, playing this style, adapting to our opponents, and I just think it's going to be the same again, and we're going up.
Wow.
End of point.
Just the same Sean that predicted we'll beat Wimbledon 5-0 and drew 1-0. I'm just waiting for the...
And Rochdale, he said, there's no way we're not beating Rochdale or words to that effect. He said, we just got too much
Sean,
for them.
Predict a loss, please. I'm waiting for Matt's prediction on the third tier tomorrow. Every time we predict us lose, we win. So I'm hoping he predicts an Oxford win. Adam, over to you. It's going to be a tight, cagey affair, but what's your score prediction for Tuesday night?
It's got to be 1-1. I think it's going to be tight. There's not going to. I can't see there being a huge amount of goals for one team, unless something madness happens, like a sending off or something, or the referee has a crazy one. I think it will just be. Madley, is it? I think I've seen who the ref is. His name doesn't stand out, so therefore he can't be one of the worst, surely. 1-1. I think 1-1.
Steve, over to you.
Oh, really not cagey. That one, I actually think we're going to get 3-1. I think we're going to come out the traps real fast. We're going to get a goal early, and then we're going to go for it. And you guys won't be ready for it. So that's why I'm going to call that. The amount of goals we've been scoring lately, you guys are confident about your defence. It's going to be a good game. Over 2.5 goals easily, I think, tomorrow.
I hope you're right, Steve. I hope you're right.
As I said before, I think we need it. I think that needs to be our game plan. If we try and play a cagey game, it won't go in our favour. We have to go for it. And that's paid dividends for us in recent games anyway, so why would you not carry that on? So, I think we need to go for it, and I think we will. So 3-1.
John, you've got the decider. I get a cop-out because we've got a draw, win, and a loss for Blackpool. So what was your score prediction for Tuesday?
I'm going to go for 2-1 Blackpool. And I think we're going to go 2-0 up, and I think they're just going to scab one at the end, like some deflection, like they always get. So just to keep the game interesting at Bloomfield Road. 2-1 Blackpool. Get a tenner on it, listeners.
I'll go with the draw. I'm with Adam on this one. I think it's going to be 1-1, and I'll take a draw going into Bloomfield Road on Friday. I think.
As Dan says, I just hope football is the winner.
Oh, that's fine. Then we're going through.
Woof. Sean's confident, but over to you, John, to close the show.
Right, yeah. So thanks for coming on, Steve. It's been a pleasure as always, and hopefully we'll be speaking throughout the game. I'm no doubt we will be speaking throughout the game on the text chat
group now, so we can't avoid it.
Yeah, we've got a WhatsApp chat group set up specifically with these 5 people in the room, so I'm sure if they go 3-1 up, my phone will be mysteriously developing a malfunction. So anyway, cheers, Steve. Thanks for coming on, mate. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, Adam. Pleasure as always.
Cheers.
And so just before you go, viewers, listeners, etc., please do like and subscribe to this channel if you've enjoyed this amazing content. Hopefully it's got you in the mood for the game tomorrow. So please do like and hit subscribe, and also hit the notification bell just before you piss off. Thanks for joining us, Sean. Been a pleasure as always. Love the Stato section as ever.
Cheers. Looking forward to it.
Cheers, Tom. Tom, you've got the third tier coming tomorrow. So do you want to just plug that before you head off?
Yeah, absolutely. Same time as this, 8 o'clock. We've got Sunderland, Lincoln, and another Oxford fan on. I wouldn't put you through it again, Steve, talking about Oxford again. But yeah, it should be a decent show. And we're going to do 2 half an hours for each game. So good content for both, with lots of statistics provided by us. So Sean will be first in line.
Our resident statistician. It's hard to say that on a Sunday evening at 9:15. Right, everybody. Thanks ever so much for joining us on the stream. Your input is welcome as always. It helps make the show better as ever. And I'll just before we go, I'll leave you all with that. of the audio pod, a referee showing Colt Robinson the red card, and hopefully.
I've just noticed he's looking at it like it's a bloody angel from above.
I don't think we've lost a game since he's been in the stand, boys. I'm just saying.
That's Trevor Kettle. He's no referee. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Was he just letting off some steam there? Was he?
He had him at boiling point.
I think we'll play the outro music on that. So thanks for joining us, everybody. And we normally say up the pool at the end, so I won't put you boys through that. I'll just say thanks for joining us, and we'll speak to you on the post-match reaction show on we're coming straight after the game on Tuesday at 9 o'clock. So cheers, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Tradition.